afternoon. Welcome to the Awakening Entrepreneurial Spirits program on small business. Today we will show program 4 of a 6-part series. The project, Awakening Entrepreneurial Spirit, the Key to Job Creation, emanated from the Pasadena Economic Development Committee in Newfoundland. They realized that an effort had to be made to create an awareness of small business in the Humber Valley Bay of Islands region, to give people a basic understanding of small business, and to help people realize that through local investing, a sound community-based economy can be established. 26 individuals were interviewed and their businesses profiled in a series of videos illustrating the concept of why to as opposed to how to enter the business world. After the videos were completed, a delivery strategy had to be chosen. It was decided that a live television broadcast by way of satellite would be the most effective medium to premiere the videos and broaden the project's efforts to stimulate economic growth in the area. On January 24th, an 11-hour broadcast was viewed not only in the Humber Valley Bay of Islands region and other areas of Newfoundland, but in most parts of Canada and the United States as well. Viewers had the opportunity to see the video series, live panel discussions on various aspects of small business, community profiles, local school concerts, and live entertainment. A toll-free telephone number and accommodations for a studio audience were provided, enabling viewers to call or drop in and see the event firsthand. Following the broadcast, the project centered on community animation. Presentations were delivered to high school students, community councils, and the general public in an effort to further awaken the entrepreneurial spirit. Today's program deals with opportunities for small business in the Atlantic region. More than 90% of Canadian firms have fewer than 50 employees, and small business accounts for about 40% of all goods and services in Canada. Over 70% of all new employment created over the last few years has been created by small businesses with 20 or fewer employees. 20% of these new jobs have been created by small businesses, by entrepreneurs starting up a business venture.
Hello, I'm Bill Pardy, Development Officer with the Town of Pasadena in Newfoundland. Our program today deals with opportunity identification. In Atlantic Canada, we're seeing a resurgence in the economy. As in the rest of Canada, we're seeing a development of the small business sector. With us today to talk about various aspects of opportunity identification, to talk about some excitement, I guess, that's happening throughout Atlantic Canada in business development. We have with us on my left Mr. Gordon Slade, who's the Vice President for ACOA in Newfoundland. We have Pat Pye, who's the Development Officer with the City of Corner Brook in Newfoundland. And we have Don Wells, who's the Mayor of Cormack in Newfoundland, as well as being an entrepreneur in his own right. I guess the first topic we should look at, why the need for business development? Why do we need to develop a business in Atlantic Canada, or develop business in Atlantic Canada? For what reason? Gordon, how would you approach that?
Well, first thing, in this province in particular, the economy is driven 70 to 80% by government. And I suppose outside of southern Ontario or Toronto, there's a need to develop business in Canada. And nowhere, I guess, would that be more important than in Newfoundland and Labrador. As we all know, that through business, you create wealth, you create jobs. It has both a material and psychological effect on people, and the more you diversify the economy, the more resilient and buoyant the economy becomes, so everybody benefits. The economy becomes more competitive, so there's everybody in the society benefits from an increase in business activity.
From a community perspective, Don, what's the benefit for a community? You're a businessman in your own right. You have definite benefits that you receive personally from a business venture, but what about from the community perspective?
From the community, I would say that the biggest single benefit would be jobs, as Gord said. The community is going to broaden its tax base, and therefore you're going to be able to provide the services and those other amenities that you want to provide for the community. But really, the bottom, the gut thing is jobs for the people of the community. Now, as you reach out and you go into the broader, then you see the benefits flowing to the region and to the province, yes.
Okay, so basically what we're saying is, I guess you're enhancing the wealth of communities and regions as a direct result of business development, but certainly then job creation becomes the main spin-off from that. That'd be a fair analogy. Pat, as development officer, which direction are we going? What's the thrust right now as you see it in Atlantic Canada from your involvement as a development officer?
I think, Bill, more people are looking at going into business for themselves, and it's interesting that Gordon has said that we're so dependent on government funding, and I think that's, or government subsidized companies, that sort of thing, and I think that's the reason that people are looking more at going into business for themselves, because it gives them more control. You have a little more control over your future, your destiny, what you can and can't do if you look at starting your own business. And I think that it's something to be said for the educational process that's been happening to people, that you do hear more people talking about, I think, as a career option, looking at a business for themselves, whereas it's not very long ago we never ever heard people even consider that as a career option. Now they're saying, well, if I can't find anything to do, it still hasn't reached the level where it's a first career option, but you look at it as, if I can't find anything else to do or something that I feel I'm suited for, I will look at starting my own business. Don makes a good point, too, that a diversified economic base, of course, gives a lot more stability to a community. And I do think that small business, it's happening now for us, you know, a lot more thrust towards people starting their own small businesses.
So are we seeing in Atlantic Canada and in Newfoundland a preference for people to stay at home? You know, one of our biggest exports in Atlantic Canada has been our human resource, where they go, there was no jobs here, so they went somewhere else looking for jobs. Gordon, are we seeing more people wanting to get involved? Is small business the direction? We've also seen in Atlantic Canada, I guess, a predominance of large-scale businesses, government looking at the large quick fix. We've got all kinds of examples right throughout the Atlantic provinces. Are we seeing now a shift towards more smaller type business, and basically because people want to stay where they're at and they see the opportunities that are around them?
Well, I guess it's as time goes on, I think people see that there are real opportunities, that we have certain strengths in our economy here, and in the resources we have, and in the people we have here, and people are seriously looking at getting involved in small business as a career option. And in ACOA, for our first year operation, we saw 36% of all of our projects were establishing new businesses. And that's quite a remarkable statistic, I think, because we weren't expecting anything like that percentage. So it's been very encouraging, and it's small business, and it's spread right throughout Newfoundland and Labrador, and through pretty well all sectors of the economy.
That was going to be my next question to Pat, I guess, with regard to the development of business. Is there any specific sector? Are we looking at a predominance of tourism-related projects versus manufacturing, or is there, as Gordon suggests, a broad cross-section, Pat, from your perspective in your area of activity?
Yeah, I think that there's no one sector. You have certain resources that are dominant in an area, and I guess tourism in our particular area is going to dominate, but people are going to look at opportunity there, and I think that as more and more as we look at 4 seasons of the year as having tourism potential, you would see more people going into that, getting away from the July-August syndrome of tourism, you know, just having a 2-month season. I think that you would find a lot of reason why there's not more development in tourism in Newfoundland is because people have not really gotten into a 12 months of the year as a tourism business. But there is a broad cross-section. People are looking at opportunities everywhere. If I might go back to a point that you were making, saying with our young people leaving home, I think people are looking more at lifestyles now. You know, Bill, I don't think that people, I think they look at the lifestyle that they have here in Newfoundland and in Atlantic Canada, and they want to examine all of their options before they give that up to go somewhere else, to a major center to get a job, because lifestyle is important. And if you can have quality living at half the income, then you're just as far ahead. I think people are looking at that more.
I think that's a very important point, Pat, and I guess our discussions preliminary to going on air were around that, and the opportunities that abound here that probably aren't as financially beneficial perhaps to what you would find in a larger center, probably are more beneficial to the development and activities here from a personal perspective as well, because the cost and the cost of living and the quality of life that we experience are much different than you get in the rush and hurry of a large center. Don, from the perspective, I know you're involved in primary industry as well as being the mayor and involved in community economic development. I'm curious as to, is there an interest do you see an interest more now to develop further the primary processes, to get into secondary production of some of the primary products that we do have? Because again, there's been a large dependency in Atlantic Canada on primary production, and I think the thrust for the future has to be in secondary production, but again, we do have the resources.
Yeah, I believe, especially in our community, where, as you say, it's primary industry, it's farming, agriculture, if you wish, and forestry. Yes, I think that they've always felt somewhat held hostage because the product was going out and somebody else was manufacturing it. Well, more and more we're seeing people taking an interest of the secondary, whether it's in forestry, in the lumber industry, or even in the agriculture. Now I see that there's more people interested in what can we do to enhance that product and to develop to a further stage. You know, this is a real possibility. We're getting into, we can take almost any commodity. We can take the easy one, I suppose, we've heard the most about, with strawberries. What do you do with strawberries when you have surplus? Well, you certainly don't want to throw them away, so usually you freeze them. You can sell them as a frozen product, but you can also sell them as jams and yogurts or whatever. There's other end products that we can put them into. And I know that there's serious consideration being put into these sort of end products, and it's our wish from the community's standpoint that there would be more of this done, because obviously if you have more of this done, whether it's in our community or in our region, it's still going to be beneficial. It's still added jobs, extra work, and hopefully it stabilizes the whole area.
The thrust of these programs and our audience out there hopefully are interested in opportunities and identification. Hopefully we've got a large number of people interviewing audience that at least have an interest in business, and what we're trying to do is draw out the various things that they'll need, the tools they'll need, and support that's out there. How do we go about identifying these opportunities? We all know that we've had an abundance. I mean, Atlantic Canada is rich in natural resources, yet from my perspective, I guess totally underdeveloped. How do we go about drawing out these ideas? Where do we get the opportunity ideas from? Don, probably well, you seem anxious to...
Yeah, I seem anxious because I'm always being accused of seeing too many opportunities, probably. There are opportunities there. When you see almost every, I wouldn't say every, but the majority of finished products that we consume provincially are generally imported. We don't finish that many products. So whether we're looking in food products, or if it's in forestry products, or I'm sure there's other products too, there's always that opportunity. You say, where do you do it? How do you put it all together? It's my feeling that communities have a responsibility of identifying those opportunities. You know, the opportunities that are most visible anyway, and the most likely to succeed in their own area. They need to identify the manpower, the people that have the skills. You know, what skills are there available? And I think it's their responsibility to have that sort of information available. I think that they should have their homework done as far as community plan, having zoning done that would accommodate business if they want to. Sort of lubricate the door and make sure that you help those people who would like to become involved in new ventures.
But you know, again, getting back to opportunities, and I think one of the points we want to bring up in this program is that we want people to look at their communities, their areas, and their regions from a different perspective, and not look at them from the point of view that we have high unemployment and a high cost of living. Look at them, as Pat said, that we've got a unique lifestyle in Newfoundland and Atlantic Canada. We've got many opportunities for development in import substitution, and we have opportunities abounding us in natural resources, and tourism certainly is one area that I think the door is just beginning to crack open, Gordon. And we talked about some of the things that you've been interested in, and some of the things that I've been interested in tourism development. But again, getting back to that, how do people identify these things? How would they approach it? You know, is there help there? Where would they go? I mean, as I said, our audience out there are just waiting for information.
Well, I guess in the first instance, you know, I think it comes from the entrepreneur. I think it's the person out there in the community who is looking around and thinking about what they could do. Government has a role in information flow, and that's an important aspect of this. What kinds of developments are taking place elsewhere in Atlantic Canada, elsewhere in the country, elsewhere in the world, that would have relevance to the resources or the skills or whatever of people in this province. So that has to be an important component. But in the first instance, you really look to the people themselves to identify the opportunities. I think it would be wrong to say government should be out there identifying the opportunities for entrepreneurs. I mean, it's the other way around, really. The entrepreneur is the person where the light goes on in the most cases.
But again, where do they get the ideas, Pat? You know, from the perspective, I think one of the things that I'm interested in is ideas usually come from exposure. So how do we get that exposure as a development officer in the city of Cormack? How do you intend to get some exposure to entrepreneurs, as we are trying today, to introduce them to new ideas and new thoughts? Because I think that's the essence of entrepreneurship is the introduction of new ideas and people that have the attributes and want to do something, capturing the ideas and opportunity.
And I'm not quite certain, Bill, if I understand what you're talking about when you say, how do you get the exposure to them? And I guess that you can only encourage people to use the services that are available by creating an awareness of what's available. And no matter how much you try to make people aware of what's available to them, there's always going to be someone out there who's not going to be aware. And I think it's important that people know that there are agencies that they can go to, at least that if they have a first contact that can take them through. And I think that in most municipalities, the first contact should be with the municipality. So, and that's the role that my office tries to play, is that we're there as a contact person. So I agree with what Gordon says, that the initiative has to be taken by the person. And when you look at our resources, if you're looking at opportunity and you look around at your resources, we have forestry, we have agriculture, we have tourism, you know, we have everything. We have an excellent geographic location. In talking about secondary processing and manufacturing that Don was speaking of, you know, we're ideally located. When you look at where we are, I look at Newfoundland on a map of the world, and I can't see why we're not doing more than we're doing. When you look at where we are, and look at some of the small islands in the world that are so developed, and here we are with everything available to us. We seem to have the resources, so there has to be lots of opportunity. It takes an entrepreneur for the light to come on and see an opportunity. Then it takes someone like me to say, here's the agencies that can help, at least be able to list them if you can't personally take them through them. It's up to the municipality to try to provide the infrastructure to make it easy for a person to do business in the community.
So what we're talking about is building an environment that ties in the municipal level, the development people, and the senior levels of government in creating an environment that assists people who have ideas, and as well, I guess, encourages people, because I guess that's what it's all about.
I'd like to make one point. Pat is right insofar as is having that person available with the expertise and the knowledge. And we know that, say, in a city or a large community, that's quite possible. In the smaller communities, what you find is that you have to have somebody involved with the community council, hopefully, that has a vision of what the community should be, or the potential, and they make sure that they have this knowledge and background and the information that would help them expedite it. Because if a person comes to the council, and generally they do, they'll come to the council. They have an idea, and they'd like to know what they're going to do with it, how they're going to push this through. Now, in your case, they don't have to. They can go to the Venture Center, but in most communities, they have a council, and they're the only people they see.
That's a good
And
point.
you're expected. You're expected. And I believe that there's a moral responsibility when you become involved in a community that you do keep this information and hopefully have a file that people can refer to. What are the agencies that can help them? What's the avenues open to them? In small communities, I feel that this is more important than even in larger centers.
And that climate, that first contact, as you're mentioning here, I mean, there's so many times a person approaches a town or a municipality, and the first person they deal with is the development control officer. And many of these development control officers are not, let's say, proactive in the business sense. The message quite often that's given, well, here's what you have to do. You have to go to environment and health and housing and all these various agencies, these regulatory bodies that are out there. And once you get all that settled, then you know, we can talk to you about financing and so on and so forth.
A restrictive environment.
It's a restrictive environment, and I think that the biggest constraint to development of small business is on the regulatory side, and how we handle that, and how municipalities handle it, and how the province handles it is a bigger constraint than access to incentive programs, in my opinion.
One of the other things we want to deal with is taking advantage of opportunities. And I guess one of the things that we look at, and we've talked about the growth of the small business sector and the predominance of large-scale projects, but large-scale projects are going to be with us for forever and a day, and I think they have a role to play in the economic development of any region. And we're looking in Newfoundland and Atlantic Canada at a major infusion of development activity through the Hibernia project. Gordon, how does one in a local rural area tap that development? Is there opportunities? Is it fair to say there is opportunities around that or directly involved in that would be beneficial to small communities and rural communities?
Well, it's really an information education process that has to precede the development, and I think the province is doing that. The companies will be doing that. The federal government will be doing that. Hopefully, there'll be a partnership so that people in Corner Brook and in other parts of the province are aware of some of the smaller opportunities. I mean, we are all aware of some of the large opportunities of building the GBS and the topsides and so on. But there are other opportunities, a smaller scale, that individuals and existing companies can get involved in. But people here, the oil business is a new business to Newfoundland. The average businessman out there, entrepreneur, doesn't know what's involved in a project of this size. So we have to let people know the range of possibilities that are there, and if they know that, then I think people will come forward and they'll enter into joint ventures and they'll tap those opportunities themselves. But they have to know, and the time frame in which people are prepared for that is quite important.
Right, and that gets back to the point I was making with Pat, is that I guess the onus then comes back down on community leaders and community development people to transfer that information, that knowledge, as best they can with the mechanisms that they got in order to make people more aware of the opportunities. Again, that's the whole point of giving them information so they can see opportunities and see what's around them. The whole thrust of these programs has been towards, again, entrepreneurial development, to probably incite people to get a little bit excited about where they live, because, as I said when we opened, we live in exciting times, I think, in Atlantic Canada. There's opportunities all around us. The business is growing in leaps and bounds, more so than ever before. There's a real re-examination, I guess, of lifestyle and the need to live here, and for our young people. You know, the people that have grown up in Atlantic Canada, I think, have an obligation to the young people to at least let them experience the same lifestyle that they've had. And we've got something unique, something that we can sell, and something that we must maintain. So as a wrap-up and closing out, I just wonder, we'll start with Don and ask if you've got something you'd like to pass on to our viewing audience. From your viewpoint, the excitement that you feel about not only your business in Cormack, but the whole thrust throughout the region.
Well, obviously I'm excited about the opportunities. I think that's pretty far-reaching. I see opportunities as, well, it's a personal opportunity. We're all motivated by something, and usually we're motivated by different things, but in business, you'd like to see something succeed. And when we say succeed, it's not always dollars. We're not always talking dollars as the end result, but you'd like to accomplish certain things. You'd like to, I think, better your community, and you hope that in providing employment you're doing this. Opportunities for the youth especially. I see my own community as growing economically, not necessarily population-wise, but we're certain that as the economy improves and as our dairy and as our food crops, whatever they might be, as they increase and as we get into these secondary things, we can see opportunities for more of our youth instead of, Pat mentioned about the youth leaving. And possibly this has been a second, or I wouldn't say final opportunity or final thing, but more people today in my community are taking business as the first opportunity. And I think that's exciting.
Don, your community certainly can be considered rural in the context of rural communities in Atlantic Canada. Maybe you'll tell the audience the size of your community.
Well, we're a population. We can say that we're the biggest municipality in Newfoundland, but only in square miles. In population, there's only 800. But we do have quite a bit of agriculture. I believe there's 9 dairy operators right now. I wouldn't hazard a guess on how much vegetables or hay produced that is used locally or elsewhere. And we're quite pleased with the direction that the community has taken over the last few years.
And you know, it's encouraging to see that you're excited about the economic growth in a small community like that. We moved on to the Newfoundland second city now, and see what Pat has to say about the economic activity and growth. Because again, I think from the city's perspective as well, things are looking fairly prosperous and fairly bright.
Yes, they are. And do I get a chance to put in a little plug now? Say Corner Brook is the city of 25,000 people. We see a lot of exciting things happening for us, and I guess that the city has just come through a bad time in the last few years, and a lot of it, you know, the thing is, Bill, is that media is a wonderful thing because it makes you or breaks you. And when we were going through tough times with the paper mill a few years ago, the publicity that we got from that did as much harm to us as actually what was happening at the mill. And we're happy to say that that's turned around. We have harbor development underway and container service into the port and exciting new markets, export markets into fisheries, which is a big thing. A lot of things happening in the educational field as an educational center in Corner Brook. And a lot of opportunity here for, like, as a parent, I have to bring this back to not only work, but as a personal thing. Like, as a parent, I'm finding that my children are not talking about leaving home. You know, that excites me because that's an option that wasn't open to our youth not so long ago. And, like, they're looking around for opportunities for them. And the fact that they talk about going into business for themselves, saying, I think I'll start a little business, shows that they have confidence in what's happening here. I don't think it's only happening in Corner Brook, it's happening to our region as a whole. I think it's like what has happened in the strawberry growers in the Humber Valley. All of these things shows that the economy certainly is on an upswing here.
And the whole environment then is enhanced, and the environment for economic development and growth certainly is encouraged by that. And Gordon is a Vice President of ACOA for Newfoundland. You're much involved, I would suggest, in the ACOA scheme in Atlantic Canada, but certainly so in Newfoundland. And I'm sure with the number of applications you've had, the involvement you've had, that you see some exciting times ahead as well for Newfoundland and for Atlantic Canada.
Well, I'm very encouraged, and I feel very positive and excited about what's happening. And, you know, in our first year operation, we will, when these projects get up and running, we'll have created 1,500 new jobs in the economy all throughout Newfoundland, Labrador, and we'll have generated out there $250 million of new activity once things get going. And that's, I think that's pretty important, and it's going to have an impact all over the province. And I guess if I have a message, it would be that people have to be more proactive, even than they are now. I met somebody the other day who said to me, "Oh, you have a COA, what's in it for me?" And I say to them, what's in it for you will depend on what you want to do. It's the onus is really on you. We're giving you the opportunity. There's a regime here now. There's a better climate. So you come forward and you tell us what you want to do. So we have challenged people, and they're taking up the challenge. And I'm really happy about how things are going.
So I guess the message we're putting forth today is that it is exciting times in Atlantic Canada. You've seen that there is excitement throughout rural, urban areas in Atlantic Canada, and there's an opportunity out there waiting. And the onus is on you, you the viewer, and you the person who wants to do something, not only for yourselves, but as Don related, for your community as well. I think it's very important. So the message I want to give back to you is let's get on with it. Let's go out there and start looking for the opportunity, take advantage of them through programs like these. We'll try and give you the information, the exposure to the tools you'll need, but in the bottom line, it comes back to you, the entrepreneur, potential entrepreneur, to get on with it. For those of you that don't want to get involved, certainly the opportunity to support the people that do is very, very important. To keep the money here in Atlantic Canada, keep it flowing throughout our system here, and make the whole economy better for all of us and our young people. I want to thank our guests today for being with us, sharing their views, and thank you for viewing this program today, and hope that we've given you some excitement and certainly some insight into to opportunities that are out there. Thank you very much.
Atlantic Canada is ripe for development, and its potential has barely been scratched. We spoke to two processing business owners who have recently established in the Incubator Mall in Pasadena.
I have with me today Ed English, who is the owner-operator of Bayside Seafoods Ltd, which is a fairly new business located in the Venture Center, the Incubator Mall in Pasadena. Ed, when you started up your business, I guess it's a relatively new business, as I said. Tell me just a little bit about the process that you went through to get it up and running.
Well, it's a new business to me, but it's not really a new business in the area. I just purchased it about a year ago. In order to make the decision to buy it, I spent several months, I suppose, really tracking down the market, finding out whether the products fit the area, sort of thing, lining up the financing, and then finally deciding to buy it, which happened, like I say, last fall sometime.
As in any new business when it starts, Ed, one of the biggest things, I guess, that people have to look at is the financing. When you started your business, did you have some of your own money, or did you borrow money from the bank or some other institution? How did you get the financing together, I guess is what I'm asking, for your business?
We got some government grants and some help that way, but a lot of my money came through a venture capital company. I don't think money is the big problem in starting most businesses. If you've got a good idea and know how to present it, you can find money. There is money out there. It's just a matter of convincing them that you're the business they should put it in.
Okay, that's interesting because some of the things we've talked about, one of the other programs that we've done is around the different financial options, I guess, available. And most people going into business think, well, I'll have to go to the bank or I'll go to the government. But you mentioned investment, which is another option. Can you tell me just a little bit about that? How does that work?
Sure. Well, there are companies out there called venture capital companies which are really catching on in Newfoundland, and what they have is a large pool of funds that they just go around investing in small businesses or large businesses, but the ones in Newfoundland now are primarily aimed at smaller businesses. And you don't really need a bank at all. I haven't gone to the bank at all for any money. You go to these people, you present them with your idea, you get the funding from the government as much as you can, and then they'll hopefully match it or come up with the rest of it.
I know the business is relatively new, but can you tell me if there's any rewards yet of working for yourself as opposed to somebody else?
I think they're going to come a little further down the line. So far it's just been frustration. No, yeah, there certainly are rewards. It's nice coming in knowing you're in charge, and when you do something you're actually getting feedback on it because you're not doing it for someone else, you're doing it for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy that aspect of it, I think.
What about your own personal background, Ed? What were you doing prior to doing this? Were you working for somebody else, or?
No, I just came straight out of school last spring and then started I had no intention of getting into the fish industry in particular in Newfoundland. I just wanted to start some company around here. And then I just spent basically the summer researching this one and several other options, and then this one came up as the best one.
What educational background? You say you just came out of school.
I just finished a master's in business at Dalhousie in Halifax, and before that I had done a biology degree at Memorial.
Do you think, I guess just a comparison, Ed, you yourself now have just finished a business degree, compared to somebody else going into business that hasn't got that kind of educational background, is there an advantage to having a business background?
There may be an advantage, but I certainly don't think it's essential. I think anyone that's got a good idea and knows how to go about it will manage to do it in the end anyway. I think maybe the business background will help you present your ideas a little better. You know how to fill out the forms sort of thing, and what the people want to hear, and you can put it in their terms a little easier, especially to start up, to make the business plan and present it to people. But overall, I wouldn't think high education is essential, although it does help.
You mentioned earlier that this was an existing business prior to your buying it. I would imagine in that case that they probably had some markets already established. Did you utilize their contacts for breaking into the market, or have you established new markets yourself, and if so, has it been difficult?
Well, there's no doubt since it was an established business, it had already, certain channels open in Newfoundland. It was in most of the stores here, so we utilized all those. Just we keep supplying the same products we have to those markets. In going to the Maritimes, we're starting with totally new ones, making new contacts. Over there now, we're just entering into the Sobeys chain. They've been very supportive over there, welcoming any local business, a good product. We've sent the product over, they've tried it, and now hopefully they will be distributing it through their stores throughout the Maritimes in the next month or so.
Was it hard to break into a major chain like that to get them to take your product?
Again, it goes back to the product. We tested the product before we started and found if people try it, they really like it. Once we can get them to eat it for the first time, we've got a customer out of them. So what we plan on doing now is doing some in-store demonstrations and things like that in conjunction with Sobeys over there, and I'm sure we'll be able to establish ourselves then.
If someone were to come to you tomorrow, somebody that wanted to go into business, somebody new, and they asked you, I guess, for one good solid piece of advice, what would it be, Ed?
Expect everything to take twice or three times as long as you thought it would, especially dealing with, not only with the government, I can't say the government's the only people, just anything you want. If you want to design a package or anything like that, it's going to take an incredible amount of time. We just designed a new package. We thought, how long can it possibly take? It took about 9 months to get the package from the idea to finally have one on our doorstep. And so, that's a lot longer than you'd think to just design a box and get it. Mm-hmm. The other thing would be the money. It can take a lot more money. If you can't break into your market as fast as you think, you better make sure you have enough money in the background to keep your business going for the 6 months or the year that it may take to turn it around.
You mentioned your products now and packages, and you're holding some there. Maybe this would be a good time, Ed, to give me an overview, I guess, of the types of products that you do have here, and maybe you can show us some of those packages that you have.
Okay, basically when I bought the company, it was a seafood processing company. It took already primarily processed fish and turned it into microwavable, put in your conventional oven sort of meals. And the ones that we're selling in Newfoundland basically came in a plastic bag like this, and they were the casserole supreme, the cottaroni, and then another one in a plastic bag, which was the cod au gratin here.
Mm-hmm.
Those are still selling in Newfoundland and will always sell here. But for the mainland market, we decided that they wanted slightly different fish. They're not as keen on cod on the mainland. They're just different preferences. If you go to Toronto, they'd like sole, whereas if you
Right.
go to Halifax, they may want haddock or something like that. So we have to change the fish. So for the mainland, we've come up with 3 products, which include this one, which is seafood with vegetables. It now has sole and shrimp and fish like that in it, with no cod at all. And the same with the seafood au gratin. It's based on different fish now. And they're all still, again, that is our 3rd product there behind me with seafood with pasta. They're all vacuum packed and everything, again, for good long shelf life and things like that. So it's basically the same recipe as Newfoundland. It's just putting the fish in that they prefer to see on the mainland.
Okay, so those won't be on the market in Newfoundland then? We will still have the
Probably not.
original?
They'd only compete with the present products and not offer, they wouldn't offer anything really new to the consumer, although we may try them here.
I understand you're doing some other processing as well, besides fish, that you...
Well, basically, when we took the company over, we realized it had to diversify. I didn't like the idea of relying on one fish or even one sector, and we wanted to get out of just relying totally on cod, so we went into the sole and the shrimp and the haddock. And then apart from that, I didn't want to rely just on fishery. So one of the reasons we moved up here was to get into farming, that sort of, their products. We're now doing, over the past few weeks, we've done strawberries frozen in little tubs and that to sell on the Newfoundland market. And presently out there today, we're doing greens, which is, as you know, it's very much like spinach, and that will be vacuum sealed and frozen and then sold over the winter in the Newfoundland market.
Okay. The secondary processing, I guess, for a number of years, take the fish industry, for instance, we've relied on just the fish itself. You take a couple fillets off it and you throw the rest of it away, and you haven't done anything else with it. You're doing secondary processing. Why, I guess, my question is?
Well, why not, is my question. It's going to be shipped to the final market anyway. If we want to ship it to Boston and then let them make all the money turning it into a table-ready item sort of thing, why not do it here? The fish is fresher here. We can make it here, get it vacuum sealed and sent out. And it doesn't have to go through all that transportation. When it's in bulk, it doesn't transport as well anyway. So this way, it's all in little packages. It just comes up with a higher quality. We've got good labor here that know how to work with seafood, rather than some places, if it goes to Montreal or Toronto, they don't know as much about working with seafood, whereas my workers are quite capable of it. So you can come up with a good product here.
Okay.
So why not?
So your labor force then is a local labor force, Ed, that you've taken from the area. How many people do you employ?
Depends on the product we're doing, really, probably around 6 or 8 on average. Depending, again, I say on the product. There's more for strawberries and probably less for the greens out there today.
Do you have to do any training with your staff at all to get them familiar, say, with the equipment or with the process itself?
Oh, certainly. And as much as anything, they're training themselves out there now. Where we're going into new products, we're constantly evolving new production methods and new ways of doing it. Any day we can go out now and come up with a better idea and put it into practice. We were lucky when we moved the plant. It used to be about 35 miles away, and we moved it, and some of the people from there came up. Others didn't want to come this far, but quite lucky that way, and that several came up, and that helped integrate the new workers in. They could see how things were done properly. So it's working out fairly well. We're having a smooth transition.
As I indicated earlier, your business is located in the Venture Center, the Incubator Mall in Pasadena, which is designed, I guess, to assist new business startups. How has this facility benefited you, Ed? What kind of assistance have you received from them?
Oh, certainly it has. For one thing, your profile is higher. I mean, you're here today, and that you probably wouldn't be down at my old plant. It was out of the way. It was in an obscure location for this sort of thing. The rent up here is reasonable, which helps cut your costs, and just having like the office and that available. You're closer to things, closer to the highway. My old plant was 15 or 20 miles down a fairly narrow road. So just transportation, trucking things out and that sort of thing was a really difficulty. So being up here in the mall has definitely helped that way.
Have they helped you in any way, like prior to even getting in here? Because I understand they do provide some kind of an assistance to startup businesses, people with ideas or whatever.
Oh yeah, there was definitely a lot of help there, especially even before I decided to start with this company. When I first started looking, just saying I wanted to do a business in general, staff here were quite good about helping me in any idea I came up with. They could provide the contacts of who you should talk to in that industry to get an idea whether that would be feasible and that sort of thing. Went on trips and met with them while I was away. Very, very useful that way.
Just in closing, I guess, Ed, we're located, like I say, on the west coast of Newfoundland here. Just, I guess, your general comments on the development potential for other people that want to go into business, any type of business. Is there a potential here in your mind?
Oh, I think there's a lot of potential here. When I got out of school, the choice was to go away or come here sort of thing, and I came here because I feel there's a lot of potential here. I think a lot of times Newfoundlanders tend to copy something local. If someone's successful locally, then they want to do the same thing and make money from it. Whereas I think there's going to be more potential in looking elsewhere and seeing what was successful. Go to Halifax and see what works there. You know, is there a franchise there, or a restaurant, or a service that they're offering people there that would work over here? I think if people went further afield to find their ideas and came back with them, or start, you know, like the secondary processing. If we start doing more obscure species now, you know, get into the eel or the squid or something like that. I think there's a lot of potential there that way, and a lot of service industries that just aren't here to serve the tourist industry and things like that. There's a lot of tourists come through and a lot of potential. We've got a beautiful area.
And we certainly have the labor force.
Oh, we've got the labor force, and they're great. I have no problem getting good workers here. You know, anybody that comes to work for you, know they're going to work. And no problem with it at all.
Great. Well, thank you, Ed, and good luck with your business.
Thank you.
I have with me today Frances Halleran, who is the owner, along with her husband, of Country Meats, one of our newest businesses in the Venture Center, the Incubator Mall in Pasadena. Frances, you also own a business in Paradise, which is called Quality Brand Meats, and that's been in operation now, I believe, for some 15 years, or almost 15 years. Can you tell me just a little bit about when you initially started your business in Paradise, sort of the process, I guess, you went through when you were first setting that business up?
Well, our first business, we just built a small building onto the side of our home we were living in. Myself and my husband just started from there, and we just our two selves really for the first few years, and after that we just grew bit by bit. As we grew, we hired more employees, and I guess that's how we started our first business.
With the type of business that you have, which is curing meats, salt beef, doing pork, sausages, and so on, there's a lot of equipment that's required for a business such as this. How did you go about acquiring your equipment, say for your first business, and then for now your business here, which is Country Meats?
Well, our first business, where we started much smaller, we just bought secondhand equipment, things that were pretty cheap at the time. We started off with very minimum amount of equipment, what we figured we could get away with. We just had a very small mortgage and a second mortgage, a small business loan. We just started from there. This business is quite different. We started out much bigger. We went to some of the government groups such as ACOA and they helped quite a bit in assisting us to get equipment. So all of our equipment would be new equipment that we would have right now. It was all purchased on different parts of, well, some of it even came as far as Germany, some from Florida or wherever.
How did you initially, when you were starting up your first business, get contacts to find out where to buy used equipment? How did you go about that?
Well, the contacts we had, my husband worked in the supermarkets for, well, quite some time, I guess, and he pretty well knew what equipment you would need to do any type of meat processing or whatever you would need in the meat business. So with contacts like that, we just, he would have known where to get equipment, even from some companies that were buying new equipment at the time. In our old business, we just purchased some of their secondhand equipment. And then as time went on, of course, in our business we have in St. John's, we knew where this equipment came from and who had the franchise for this equipment, and we just ordered through them the new equipment.
Right. Now, that first company that you have, Quality Brand Meats, is in Paradise, which is on the east coast of Newfoundland.
Right. Yes.
We're located on the west coast of Newfoundland. Why the west coast, Frances?
Well, good question. The west coast, really, I guess we pretty well cover right from the east coast to central Newfoundland with our Quality Brand Meats product. So we thought there probably would be a market at the west coast that could take in probably the Labrador area and all of the west coast, and probably even backtrack a little to central, because we pretty well can supply right up to central, but we thought there was room out here for another processing plant like ours. We didn't see anything out here like ours. I know there's a lot of product out here that same type as we sell, but it's not processed right here on the west coast.
Right, it's a product that comes from...
It comes from different places. Some come so far as from St. John's and others from New Brunswick area. And, yeah.
How has it been? Like, you've only been here now on the West Coast, well, since the beginning of the summer, I guess. What's it been like trying to break into the market here, to try to sell your products to the stores here on the West Coast? Is
hard.
It's
Started
hard.
up hard, very hard. Really, right here, there's quite a few major chains here, and unless you latch onto those major chains, it's going to be very difficult to get into the marketplace. We've picked up a couple of them, but a few of the other ones we haven't got into them yet. You just have to keep going back several times, hoping that they will buy them. Really, you're at the mercy of the chain supermarkets in any area that you start a business. If they don't purchase from you, well then, it's going to be very difficult.
Right. I've talked to, again, a lot of business people, and they've all said that it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of long hours, and so on and so forth. This now is your second business, so obviously there's something that keeps you doing what you're doing. Is there any rewards of doing this, or what is it that keeps you going?
Rewards, I don't know. I can't see any reward. A lot of headaches, but rewards, I don't know. I guess some people are cut out for business. I'm the type, my husband too, where I suppose we're energetic. We like to be busy and keep doing things. You have to work. If you don't work for yourself, you will have to work at an employment someplace. So we feel we just like to start a business and start a new adventure and just hope it will grow from there. I guess really that's the only reward, is just to see it as something that you created and you see it grow. And then we have children, and hopefully, please God, down the road, that they'll come into the benefit of some of those businesses that we would start.
Right, okay. It's been now, like you say, probably about 15 years or so since you've started your first business. Have you had any close calls along the way, like where you've said, oh my goodness, maybe it's not going to make it?
Lots of close calls in business. I guess most business people would think the same way. Our first business, when we started almost 15 years ago, we were just in business a few years. And two of our best customers, so we thought, were best customers, were at a bankruptcy. So you never know in business. You could think that's a good customer, and yet they could be into you for quite a bit of money. As business goes, you let your good customers run a little higher than you would the ones you had doubt about, but then you don't know. You just don't know how people's finance situation really is. So we did have quite a few close calls.
When you went into business, did you or your husband have any personal background, any training for business, or say for the type of business that you've gone into? I mean, you have to be knowledgeable about what you're doing.
Well, my husband is a meat cutter, and there's not too much, he'll kill me for saying this, there's not too much about meat he doesn't know. He's, I'd say, one of the better meat cutters there is to get, and he's pretty well informed about any type of meats and how to process it and whatever. So he knew all about the meats, he knew all about the processing part of it, and then also he had a little experience in management. He did manage a supermarket chain for the meat department in St. John's. He also helped to start up a supermarket chain when it started in our area, probably around 20 years ago. The business is not there now because the people that he had started for had sold out and moved on. But he did help to get that set up for them. So he had a little experience in setting up business and also management.
What about yourself? What was your background?
No, not really. I didn't have a whole lot of experience in management or setting up. I always leaned towards business. I like doing things like that. I like creating different things. But no, I just learned from him as he started. I just followed, and he taught me from there.
Learn as you go.
Learn as I went along, yeah.
Right. At this point, say there was somebody, say your daughter came to you and said, Mom, I want to go into business. What's the best piece of advice, I guess, that you would give her?
Well, the first thing I would want to know for sure that she would know what she's doing. I think the worst thing in starting up a business is to get involved in something you really don't know yourself much about. If she knew what she was doing and it was her line of work, she was interested in it, she could afford to raise the money with a reasonable amount of financing without going overboard with it. I think I would say, well, give it a best shot.
So basically it falls back to something that you're interested in, something that you have to have some knowledge about it, and to start small.
start small and a little knowledge and hard work. You have to, I think any business, if you're going to start it, you have to be prepared to work hard and long hours. It
Everybody
doesn't
says
come
that.
easy.
Yeah, right. As I mentioned, this particular business, Country Meats, is located in the Venture Center, which is the Incubator Mall here in Pasadena. And the Incubator Mall is, I guess, its primary purpose is to help small businesses grow, to provide assistance and so on. How has that helped you?
The Incubator Mall was a great help. I mean, start up something the size of what we started here. We could never do it and buy a building or rent a building as cheap as we could here in this mall. I mean, rent would be a tremendous amount of money. Trying to get into the marketplace and trying to meet all your other obligations, you could not really start this size and pay high rent. So the mall here is really a great help with the rent.
Has it helped you in any other way besides subsidizing your rent?
Well, I guess just the people that run the place couldn't be any better than they are. I mean, anything you want, they're right there to help you with it, and we really appreciate it. So they're all really obliging. Just I couldn't see any place to start a business any better than those Incubator Malls, really.
You've been here on the West Coast for a while, and you've been going around the region. You've had a chance to see the area. From the perspective of any type of a business, I guess, do you think there's a potential here on the West Coast that's basically untapped?
I think so, but the West Coast is a lot harder to do business, I think, than the East Coast. It's much more spread out. So I think people would have to really know what they're getting involved in to get at, getting on the West Coast. But I think there's a potential. I mean, we have, some of the best berries out here on the West Coast you can possibly get. I mean, I don't know why we can't even get into a manufacturing of jams or fruits or something
Right.
So I really think there's a potential out here if you can get businessmen to get the investment going sort of thing and get in the marketplace. I think there is.
Okay. Where does your labor force, where are you getting your labor force from? For instance, is it a local labor force? Have you brought people in who are already trained in what you're doing, or are you training your staff? Or
We're training all of our staff. We have 6 people on the payroll as now, besides myself and my husband. And we just come back and forth here every second or third week. One of us are here. But other than that, 4 people are from the immediate area, the Humber region here. The one is from Parsons Pond, and that's my son-in-law, which is Michelle's husband. And he's from the Parsons Pond area. And Michelle is the only one from the East Coast, and she's our daughter, of course, and she looks after the best part of the business here for us. And right there, we find no problems getting people to work out here. I mean, it's the most calls we get one of a day is people looking for employment.
Right. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time, and good luck in your business.
Thank you very much.
The changes in the economy over the past few years have been staggering. It is evident that a great deal of development has taken place and will continue to take place in the near future. Small business seems to be the key to Atlantic Canada's future, and more people are taking the plunge and opening their own small business.